I set out for my first solo camping trip a few weeks ago. I was 32, fresh out of college. I wanted to bond with nature and escape the hustle of finding a job. I wasn't a pro camper, but I'd done it enough to feel okay. I found a nice spot by a secluded lake in the Appalachian Mountains. It was quiet and peaceful. I set up my tent and breathed in the scent of damp earth and pine trees. I thought I had finally found my break. That evening I lit a campfire and sat down, watching the flames flicker. But then I saw movement at the edge of the trees. My heart raced. Something darted in and out of the shadows. I shook my head, thinking it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. I focused back on the fire. The next night felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I tried to calm myself with a book. Then I heard it. A soft laughter. It sounded like children playing far away. I turned my head, but there was no one. Just the wind whispering through the trees. Later I noticed a half-burnt candle on my picnic table. I didn't remember bringing it. I picked it up, my hand shaking. Maybe someone was just messing with me. I looked around but didn't see anyone. I shrugged it off and went to bed. By the third night, everything escalated. I woke up to scratching sounds outside my tent. I held my breath, my heart pounding. Was it a critter? Or something worse? I peered outside but saw nothing. The forest looked normal, but it didn't feel right. In the morning, I stumbled upon strange carvings on the trees, almost like symbols. I remembered reading stories about campers who vanished without a trace. I tried to dismiss it as a myth, but the hairs on my neck stood up. My stomach churned, but I brushed it aside. On my final night, I sat by the fire again, feeling that watchful gaze. I looked up. There was someone standing at the edge of the trees. They looked like a person, but it was too dark to see anything. I called out, thinking maybe it was a fellow camper. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. I shouted again, but only the crackling flames replied. The figure didn't move. I blinked once, and it vanished. My heart dropped. Was I seeing things? I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I wanted to leave, but didn't want to stir the fire. I stared into the flames, my mind racing. I couldn't help but wonder if I was actually alone in those woods. I felt the weight of shadows surrounding me. Now that I'm back in the city, I still can't shake that feeling. I hear laughter again, but it's distant and echoing. I look around and see nothing. Was it just city noise? Or is something creeping back into my mind? I really don't know, and that's what terrifies me the most. I couldn't focus on anything since returning from the woods. I found myself wandering around the city, trying to clear my head but feeling like I was still trapped among the trees. The laughter echoed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of something watching me. I decided to call up Sarah, an old friend who loved the outdoors. Maybe talking it over would help. We met at our favorite coffee shop, a small corner place with mismatched chairs. I sat down, fidgeting with the sleeve of my cup. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, concern lining her face. I told her about my trip, how it started off lovely and took a dark turn. When I mentioned the figure in the trees, she frowned. "Maybe it was just your imagination," she said gently, but I could see the doubt creeping in. "I don't know," I replied, frustration bubbling in my chest. It felt real, and there were those carvings. I described the symbols I saw, hoping she would understand. Could it have been a prank? "You know how people are in the woods," she suggested. I nodded but felt a twist of unease. I could dismiss it as a prank, only so much. Later that night, I decided to look up those carvings online. I was surprised by how many stories there were. Stories about missing campers, about local legends, and those strange symbols carved into trees. I felt my heart race with every click. Then, I found a forum discussing a specific symbol, a spiraled design. It was often linked to rituals performed by local tribes. It was said to ward off evil spirits. A chill ran down my spine. I had seen that very symbol in the woods. What did it mean? Was what I experienced connected to this? I started pacing my small apartment, biting my nails. Could those experiences have been something more? I knew I couldn't let it go. I had to go back. I had to see if it was all in my head or if something truly unsettling lingered there. The next day I drove back to the Appalachian Mountains. My heart raced as I got closer. I parked at the same spot where I had set up camp before and felt the weight of the forest pressing down on me. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. As I approached my old campsite, the air felt thick and heavy. The familiar sights filled me with a sense of apprehension. I set up the tent quickly, my hands trembling. That night I planned to stay awake. I had to find answers. I had to be sure. The moment the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt that same oppressive energy. The laughter echoed again, and this time, it felt closer. I stepped outside, scanning the darkness. That's when I saw it. Something moved at the tree line. A figure. This time I didn't call out. Instead, I stilled my breath, forcing myself to listen. The laughter came again, clear as day. I barely moved, heart thudding in my ears. The shadows around me were alive, and I knew I wasn't just dreaming. I didn't dare take a step closer. The figure shifted at the edge of the tree line, just out of reach of my flashlight. Shadows wove in and around the trees, creating shapes that twisted and darted as if they had a life of their own. The laughter echoed again, a haunting sound that sent shivers down my spine. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was an animal or some other camper playing a trick. But the laughter continued, low and almost mocking. I couldn't shake the image of the spiraled carvings. I had come here looking for answers, but all I felt was dread. "Hello?" I finally managed to whisper, my voice barely carrying over the surround of the darkened woods. No response. Just more laughter, now twisting into what sounded like whispers. Panic clawed at me. I pivoted, almost running back to my tent. My mind raced. I glanced at my phone, but there was no signal. Not that I could expect help out here anyway. I grabbed my flashlight tightly, the beam wavering as I pointed it back into the trees. Nothing. Just the muted darkness and the oppressive silence. Maybe I was being foolish. Taking a deep breath, I resolved to stay. If something was out there, I needed to confront it. I crouched down next to the fire pit and took a seat, my heart still racing. As I stared into the flickering embers, I recalled something from my research. The symbols were said to represent protection, but what were they protecting me from? Or worse, what were they meant to summon? The laughter rose again, louder, seemingly surrounding me now. I finally aimed my flashlight toward the sound. The beam cut through the night, landing on something unexpected, a weathered tree with fresh carvings deeply etched into the bark. The spirals, just like the ones I had seen before, danced across its surface. I stood slowly, every hair on my body standing on end. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I couldn't pull myself away. I dared to step closer, examining the symbols. Suddenly, the laughter turned into a chorus of high-pitched giggles. The energy shifted, and I couldn't tell if it was real or just in my head. That's when I saw them, a group of figures moving between the trees, barely visible in the darkness but unmistakable in their intent. There were 3, maybe 4. They wore tattered clothes, their faces obscured by shadow, but their eyes glinted in the light like animal eyes. And then they laughed again. Everything in me screamed to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. I felt trapped. Then all at once the air grew cold. The figures paused. I could see them staring at me, silent now, as if waiting for something. The moment felt suspended, as if the very forest was holding its breath, and I knew that whatever was about to happen would change everything. The silence stretched uneasily, and I could barely breathe. The eyes of the figures reflected the light from my flashlight, their laughter replaced by an unsettling calmness. My heart pounded in my chest, like a frantic drumbeat demanding escape. I was painfully aware of how alone I was out here, far from the safety of civilization. Then one of the figures stepped forward, breaking the barrier of shadow. I felt my pulse quicken even further. He was a boy, maybe no more than 12, with wild hair and patches of mud on his clothes. He smiled, revealing teeth that looked almost too sharp, the dim light washing out any trace of humanity in his face. "What are you doing?" His voice was light and playful, yet somehow cold. I stammered for an answer, but nothing came. The truth was, I didn't know what I was doing. I had come here to investigate legends, and now I was confronted with an unsettling reality. Before I could respond, he turned his head slightly and motioned for the others to come forward. They stepped into the beam of my flashlight, revealing more children, young faces twisted in unfathomable smiles. I stumbled back, the reality of my situation dawning on me. These weren't mere campers. They were something far more sinister. "We like to play," the boy said, tilting his head as if studying me like one might study an insect. The other figures giggled again, the sound echoing around me, an eerie chorus. "Play? What kind of game?" I managed to croak, feeling the tightness in my throat. They didn't answer, instead standing still and waiting. It was as if they were testing me, seeing how far I would go. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet I remained rooted in place, fear gripping me tightly. Suddenly, I remembered the carvings on the tree. I had to ask. "The spirals, what do they mean?" The question felt foolish given the terror unfolding around me. The boy stepped closer. "They're for us," he said, pointing to the symbols on the tree. "To keep them away." His fingers swirled in the air as if dancing to a tune I couldn't hear. "Keep what away?" I asked, anxiety creeping through my voice. With each question, I felt myself losing control, but I had to understand. He laughed again, this time without joy. "The ones who don't play, they don't like us." Before I could grasp what that meant, shadows flickered at the edge of the woods, figures moving just beyond my flashlight's reach. The boy's smile widened, and he gestured toward the forest. "Time to play." In an instant, the playful demeanor vanished. The group charged at me with unnatural speed, laughter morphing into horrid screaming. The darkness behind them pulsed, and I felt cold fingers grip my spine. Instinct took over. I turned and bolted, sprinting away, the soft forest floor crunching beneath my hurried feet. The thicket swirled with the sound of laughter trailing behind me, as chilling as the frigid night air. I didn't look back, but I knew they were coming. My mind raced, thoughts blurring together. Where was the path? I needed to get back to my tent, but as I dashed deeper into the woods, I realized I was hopelessly lost. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into an impenetrable black. I stopped, heart hammering, panic flooding my senses. My breath came in short gasps, and I strained to hear anything over the silence. And then I heard it. A whisper, soft and sinister, coming from all around me. "Come out to play." I stood frozen, the whisper wrapping around me like a cold blanket. I could feel the forest pressing in, thick and oppressive. My thoughts raced. I couldn't stay here. I had to move. My instincts kicked in, and I slowly turned in a direction, willing my feet to find some path, any path. But I was not alone. Shadows shifted in the darkness, and the laughter grew fainter, replaced by an ominous stillness. I strained to hear over the pounding of my heart, focusing on the sounds around me. My pulse quickened again, and the silence became almost deafening. I swallowed hard, trying to calm myself. "Please," I said, barely a whisper. "Just leave me alone." Nothing responded. The woods felt alive, and I could sense eyes watching from the thick underbrush. I took a few shaky steps forward, feeling my way through the darkness. Suddenly, I stumbled over a root, falling to my knees. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled back up, my palms raw and shaking. That's when I saw it. A faint glow illuminated a clearing ahead. My heart leaped. It could be a way out, maybe even a campsite where others might be. The idea of safety drew me in, and I began to run towards the light, dodging branches and leaping over bushes. As I approached, the glowing figure solidified into something I hadn't expected. A small fire flickered in the center of the clearing, casting warm light over a circle of stones. But surrounding the fire were more children, faces painted, eyes wide and gleaming with an almost feral delight. They sat cross-legged in a semicircle, watching me with unsettling intensity. "Welcome to our circle," one of them called, her voice eerily sweet. She had long hair, tangled and wild, with feathers woven into it that danced with the firelight. "We've been waiting for you." A wave of dread washed over me. "Waiting for me," I echoed, inching backward. My mind raced as I recalled the words of the boy from before. "The ones who don't play." "Yes," she chirped, clapping her hands together. "To join us. We play games every night. You came to play, didn't you?" "No, I just wanted to explore," I stammered, desperately looking for a way out. The child's grin widened as her friends moved closer, forcing me into the light. "Exploration is our favorite game," another shouted, excitement dripping from his tone. They all burst into spontaneous giggles like a chorus of unexpected thunderclaps, sending fresh chills up my spine. I backed away, my mind whirling. I could feel the pull of the darkness where I'd come from, a place I instinctively wanted to return to, even if it was full of danger. But a new horror grew in the pit of my stomach. Their eyes were on me, bright and hungry. Then I caught a flicker of movement behind them. Something large and dark shifted in the shadows, too massive for any of the children. A wave of fear crashed over me, and instinct took control again. "I need to leave," I shouted, turning to run again. But as I turned, I felt countless small hands grabbing my arms, pulling me back into the clearing. "You can't leave." They laughed in unison, their voices conspiratorial. "You have to play." The flickering firelight cast grotesque shadows across their faces, distorting them into something monstrous. I struggled against their grip, but it felt like I was in a dream, helpless and trapped. Then something deep within me snapped. I kicked and twisted, fighting with all I had. I couldn't let them take me. I couldn't let them win. With one final surge of adrenaline, I broke free, pushing through the crowd of children. As I sprinted into the shadows once more, I heard one last call behind me. "You can't hide forever. The game is just beginning." The laughter echoed around me. Fear surged forward with every step I took, but I was determined to find my way out. The only problem, I had no idea where I was going. The darkness swallowed me again, but I wouldn't stop. Not yet. Then, I heard the rustling again, louder this time. Someone, or something, was following. My breath came in sharp bursts as I plunged deeper into the woods. The rustling behind me grew louder, more distinct, like a predator stalking its prey. I glanced over my shoulder, but all I saw was an endless sea of trees, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. I pushed my legs harder, the ground uneven and treacherous beneath my feet. Panic fueled each stride, but I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. There had to be a place where I could hide, somewhere the dark wouldn't be as suffocating. The glow of the fire began to fade in the distance, swallowed by the thickening blackness. I needed to find the path I'd lost. Suddenly, I stumbled on a hill, nearly tumbling headfirst down its steep slope. I caught myself with a thud against a gnarled tree trunk. The bark scraped against my palms, but I barely noticed. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I pressed my back against the rough bark, closing my eyes in a desperate attempt to gather my thoughts. What had those kids wanted? Their glee had felt unnatural, and that laughter echoed still, taunting me. Without warning, a low growl stopped me cold. Tension coiled in my stomach. I opened my eyes, squinting into the blackness. The shadows shifted again, and this time the source was clearer. A massive figure loomed just beyond the tree line. I couldn't make out its shape, but I could feel it. The air thickened, and the hairs on my arms stood on end. It was instinct that urged me to move, to peel myself away from the vulnerable position I was in. Driven by fear, I darted off the hill and into the underbrush, branches scratching at my skin as I pushed through. As I stumbled deeper into the woods, I heard the sound again, a rustle followed by that chilling growl. It wasn't just a creature. It was close. I dared not look back this time, but my mind raced with questions. What was it? Was it friendly? Or more like the children, playful, but dangerous? I veered sharply to the left, desperate to put distance between me and the unseen threat. Then I spotted it. A narrow gap between two large boulders ahead. My heart surged with hope. A hiding spot. Without hesitating, I dove into the crevice, squeezing myself between the stones, praying that whatever was hunting me wouldn't notice. I pressed myself into the cool earth, my breath trembling in my throat. The growl became louder, closer. The underbrush rustled, branches snapped, like the creature was investigating every inch of the area. My heart raced as I waited, straining to hear anything over the pounding in my ears. Then, silence. The absence of sound was more terrifying than any growl. Had it left? Or was it simply waiting, biding its time? I stayed still, the air thick with unease. Minutes dragged on, stretching into what felt like hours. Just when I feared I would suffocate in the quiet, I heard it. A soft giggle. It came from the direction of the clearing, then more laughter. The same chilling laughter I'd heard just before I'd run. My heart sank as realization hit me. They weren't just children. They were a part of this darkness, and they'd likely summoned something more sinister. I had to get out of here. But how? I needed to make a plan. Just as I began to summon the courage to crawl out of my hiding spot, I spotted movement beside the boulders. A shadow shifted. I held my breath, fear coursing through my veins. And then I saw it. Something was watching. The shadow emerged slowly, revealing a figure more significant than I'd anticipated. It was hunched over, with long limbs and spindly fingers that could reach out and grab me within seconds, but I didn't dare breathe or even blink. I was frozen in place, an immobile prey caught in the gaze of a predator. The creature's eyes were dark voids, and I felt their weight pressing down on me as if they could see straight through the boulders. A wave of icy dread washed over me. It let out a low growl, rumbling deep within its chest. My insides knotted tighter, and every instinct screamed for me to move, yet I remained trapped. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature tilted its head, as if it had sensed something more in the air, a whisper of a sound coming from the clearing. It straightened, muscles tensing, and without warning darted into the darkness, its movements swift and silent. I waited, hearing only the soft click of leaves as it vanished. My mind whirred, trying to grasp what had just happened. Was its departure a reprieve or merely a precursor to something worse? I bit my lip, willing myself to stay quiet. The oppressive silence felt like a weight. Then, laughter erupted again. The children, their unsettling giggles echoed like an elusive melody drifting closer. Were they drawn to me? Or were they leading me somewhere? The idea twisted my stomach, but I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. I shifted, testing the space around me, hoping for a way out without being seen. Just as I started to inch out, I caught a flicker of movement through the trees. A figure stepped into the clearing. A child dressed in what looked like tattered clothes, face painted with what might have been mud or something darker. A wide grin stretched across his face, eyes glinting with an unsettling shine that sent a shiver down my spine. "Come out, come out," the child sang, his voice smooth as silk but layered with mischief. "We just want to play." My heart raced. Play? What game was this? I wanted to shout, to tell him that his game wasn't funny, but every bit of instinct warned me to stay shadowed. I pressed deeper against the cold stone, wishing the earth would swallow me whole. More laughter joined his, and soon the clearing was filled with at least 5 other figures, their laughter ringing out like a haunting chorus. I could barely make out their features under the darkness, but their eyes, wide and wild, sent panic spiraling through me again. I needed to leave. I needed to find a way back to safety. But what if the creature returned? Just then, a thought struck me. Could they be linked? The glee of the children mixed with the growl of the beast. They were connected. I took a deep breath and decided to act. I would have to reveal myself not to them but to the darkness around me. Maybe the creature that roamed these woods protected me from the more sinister playmates. I was left with a single option. I had to draw the creature back. As I steeled my resolve to make some noise, everything suddenly went dark. The laughter faded, and the children fell silent. I squinted into the dark, heart pounding, and that was when I realized I was not alone. Something was now very close. I strained to hear, every sense alert. The air shifted around me, thick with an energy I couldn't place. The children were gone, but something else lingered just beyond the reach of my sight. I could feel it. The unease crawled along my skin like tiny insects. Then came a sound. A whisper. It brushed against my ears, soft but sharp enough to cut through the silence of the night. "Come play with us." It was a sing-song voice, almost melodic, wrapping around my mind and pulling me in. I fought the urge to move toward it. I clenched my fists, forcing my heart to steady. I couldn't be lured into that darkness. With nowhere else to go, I took a chance and stepped into the clearing. The moonlight broke through the trees, splashing silver across the ground. But just as I regained my breath, I heard another noise different from the whispers, a slow, deliberate crunching of leaves. I turned slowly, looking for whatever watched me. My body tensed, the hairs on my neck standing on end. That wasn't just any sound. It was heavy, deliberate, like something that didn't care about being stealthy. Fear curled in my gut as I realized it was getting closer. "Where are you?" the child's voice called from the shadows. "Don't be shy." I stumbled backward, adrenaline fueling my movements as I bumped into something solid. It felt like a tree, cold and unyielding. I spun around, heart hammering. I needed to see, needed to know what I was dealing with. And that's when I saw it. The creature emerged from the tree line. My breath caught in my throat as I took in its image, half hidden by shadows. It stood tall, hunched, with limbs that looked far too long for any human. The fingers curled like claws, glistening in the moonlight. My instincts screamed to turn and run, but my legs felt heavy, frozen like before. The creature sniffed the air, its movements slow and calculated. It didn't seem to notice me yet. Maybe there was still a chance. "Come play." The child's voice rang out again, even closer now, as if he were right beside me. I dared to peek around the tree, searching for that elusive figure. My eyes darted in every direction, but all I could see was darkness swirling. Suddenly a shrill scream shattered the silence. It erupted from deeper in the woods, frantic and raw. A second scream followed, splintering the oppressive air. A rush of panic shot through me. I could feel the predator's gaze lock onto me, its focus shifting. I swallowed hard, heart racing faster than ever. The screams, were they real? Or part of this twisted game? I fought the urge to look away, knowing that if I was going to survive, I needed to pay attention. Before I could fully process what was happening, the children's laughter erupted again, this time sinister and taunting. The creature let out a growl in response, reverberating from deep within its chest. I was caught in a twisted game, and the stakes just escalated. Then without warning it lunged and everything went dark again. I felt an icy wind rush past me as it moved. My mind spiraled into chaos. I had to make a choice. Should I take cover, or would that only draw the attention of whatever hunted me? Time was running out. I had to figure out whether to hide or fight before the darkness claimed me. The creature moved so quickly I barely had time to process its intentions. I chose instinct over thought and dove behind the nearest tree, heart racing. The bark was rough against my skin. I held my breath, praying it couldn't hear my shivering body. The stillness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I strained to hear anything, but all I could focus on was the ringing in my ears. My thoughts raced through the night. Should I call for help? Would anyone hear me? Or was I too far gone? The laughter faded into the distance, replaced by the rustling of leaves far too close for comfort. I peeked around the trunk, trying to catch a glimpse of my pursuer. The clearing was still, but the darkness beyond the trees felt alive, shifting. I saw something move in my peripheral vision, a flash of white near the ground. It was the last thing I expected to find. "What are you doing out here?" A voice whispered, warm and inviting, breaking through the chill of fear. I turned, startled. A girl stood just outside the edge of my vision, her dark hair framing a pale face. She looked lost, just like me. The moonlight caught her eyes, which shone like silver. "Don't be scared. We're just playing." "Playing?" I repeated, unsure if I was really seeing her. The weight of confusion hung in my chest. "Yes, playing, but it's not fun when you hide." Her voice was teasing, but there was an edge to it I didn't like. "Join us, come see." The way she looked at me felt wrong. It was as though her gaze pierced through my defenses and peered into my turmoil. The laughter bubbled up again from the depths of the woods, this time louder and sharper. It pulled at my insides, urging me to abandon reason. Before I could think, my gut stirred with a sense of dread. "Where are the other kids?" I asked, forcing the words out. Her smile widened at my question, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They're all around." She waved her hand, but it was a gesture of dismissal, not direction. "They want to play with you, if you're brave enough." I shuddered. Clarity wrapped around me like a lifeline. "No," I said firmly, "I'm not playing anymore." As if I'd summoned it with my words, the creature let out a growl, echoing through the trees. The girl flinched. "You shouldn't have said that." Panic surged in me again, and I took a step back. "What does it want?" Another rustle came from behind me, and I felt the pressure of something tangible in the air. I bolted to my right, heart pounding like a drum. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. My mind screamed for me to escape away from the darkness that felt all-consuming. But nothing prepared me for what I encountered next. Stumbling into a clearing, I tripped over something soft. A child's toy, already cracked and half buried in the loamy earth. The moonlight illuminated it, casting shadows that danced eerily against the trees. Then the girl's laughter rippled through the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of whispers. "We're waiting, Sarah." That's when I understood. This went deeper than I thought. The game was more sinister than I could have imagined, and now it wasn't just about survival. I had to find a way to outsmart whatever was hunting me before it closed in for good. And in that moment, the forest felt claustrophobic, closing in around me. I had to find a way out, and fast. The forest seemed alive around me, pulsating with an energy that made my skin crawl. The laughter, now echoing in a discordant symphony of mirth and malice, wrapped around me like a shroud. I couldn't afford to think of what awaited me if I faltered. I had to keep moving. I sprinted forward, desperate for a path through the maze of trees, but the ground beneath me felt like it was shifting. Branches clawed at my arms and legs, snagging my clothes as if trying to hold me back. I barely registered the pain. Adrenaline surged through me, fueling each desperate step. Then, as I barreled through the underbrush, the laughter began to fade, replaced by a low, unsettling silence. I glanced back, and for a brief instant, my heart raced at the thought of the children or the creature catching up to me. But there was nothing, just darkness. I spotted a narrow trail winding through the trees, almost hidden by brush. It was my only hope. I darted toward it and plunged into the path, finally feeling the chill of covered ground beneath my feet. The trees seemed to form a tunnel. Whatever lay behind me felt further away, and I dared hope that I might be escaping. But the stillness was deceptive. Almost as soon as I stepped onto the path, shadows thickened around me. It felt less like freedom and more like a trap. I strained my ears for any sound, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I heard it. A whisper threaded through the air, soft but unmistakable. "Come back to play." I shivered. The voice sounded close, a fog settling over my resolve. Panic started to creep back in, but I forced myself onward, gripping my flashlight tightly. With every step I felt the ground shift underfoot, almost like it was breathing. The trees loomed menacingly, their branches twisting together to form a canopy that blocked out the remaining moonlight. Suddenly I saw it. A flicker up ahead. A faint glow cutting through the shadow. I rushed toward it, heart pounding as the glow began to take shape. Standing before me was a small clearing lit by fireflies dancing like stars above. In the center lay a large stone, almost altar-like, etched with the spirals I'd seen before, the same symbols meant to protect. I had to reach that stone. Maybe it held answers, or at the very least, safety. I stumbled into the clearing, the light from the fireflies surrounding me, illuminating my path as if guiding me toward hope. I hesitated, sensing something heavy in the air. It was too quiet. Then, their laughter echoed again, sharper, more frenzied. It surged through the night, seemingly surrounding me. I turned, the chill crawling up my spine as the children came into view, emerging from the shadows like apparitions. Their expressions filled with excitement, ready for something terrible. "Are you ready to play?" the boy from the clearing earlier asked, a manic light in his eyes. "You've come so far. Don't be scared, we're all friends here." "No, I don't want to play anymore," I shouted, defiance laced with desperation. I pressed forward toward the stone, hoping the symbols would provide some kind of shield. The laughter erupted again, bringing a wave of fear crashing over me. But instead of freezing, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I needed to stand my ground. "Why do you want me?" I yelled, forcing my voice to sound steady. "What do you want from me?" "It's a game," the girl with the wild hair said sweetly, stepping forward. "And it's more fun with you. It's the rules." Her eyes sparkled in the darkness, and I felt the weight of her gaze pressing down on me. "No!" I screamed, charging toward the stone, the spirals glowing faintly under the light of the swarming fireflies. I shoved my hands against the stone's surface, feeling the smooth engravings beneath my fingertips. "I have to stop this." A high-pitched giggle cut through the air, sending chills racing down my spine. "You can't stop us." But as I pressed against the stone, something unexpected happened. The spirals began to shimmer, light flaring as though resonating with my fear. I gasped, feeling a surge of energy pulse through the grove, the fireflies dancing faster, illuminating the woods around us. The children froze, their laughter fading into confusion. "What are you doing?" the boy asked, eyes narrowing. "You can't break the rules." "I'm changing the game," I shouted, pushing deeper against the stone. Just then, I realized, the creature. It had been hunting me, possibly drawn by the same energy radiating from the stone. I tried to channel that thought, amplifying my intent. "Leave me alone. You can't have me." With those words, the energy surged. The spirals glowed brighter, pulsing around me. And suddenly I felt weightless, as if the very air was lifting me. All at once, the forest erupted in chaos, swirling vines and branches rising up, shadows slashing through the eerie light. Then I saw it, the creature breaking through the thicket, an ominous silhouette against the brilliant glow of the stone. It halted, its growl deep and threatening, but the light seemed to form a barrier. The children shrieked, their expressions shifting from excitement to horror as if realizing they'd lost their grip. "Run!" I yelled at them, feeling a strange sense of power welling up inside me. The laughter faded into frightened gasps as they scattered back into the darkened woods, leaving me and the creature. Yet even as I felt the victory dance in my veins, I could see the creature's eyes narrow, its focus becoming fixed on me. I wasn't free yet. I took a step back, no longer feeling brave, but knowing I had to stand my ground. The light shone brighter, cascaded like a beacon, yet within that brilliance a fear coursed through me. What if this wasn't the end? What if something else lingered within the darkness? And that's when I understood. The woods weren't just a battleground for the children and the creature. They were alive, weaving shadows of uncertainty that would never be entirely banished. As the creature lunged, dark claws stretching toward me, I too charged forward, light against darkness, and prepared to fight for my survival. The last thing I glimpsed before we collided was the boulders, a reminder that the shadows we create never truly disappear. They linger, waiting for a moment of weakness to return. The world exploded around me, filled with brilliance and blackness. I couldn't tell what was real or imagined anymore. And in that moment, everything between light and shadow became a haunting echo that would never truly fade. What I had entered into was no mere game, but a twisted dance with a darkness that fed off fear. No matter how far I ran, the questions would remain. Had I escaped, or had I merely unsettled the balance? As I fell into the abyss, I understood. In this world, some games never truly end.